Hi, brothers and sisters. I'm coming to you with an urgent message of something that I literally ran to, just kind of get dressed really quick as fast as I could, so I could come onto this video. Unfortunately, I let a lot of my insecurities keep me from being on the video, just kind of like Moses was, how he stuttered. I have my own insecurities, and the enemy just really wants to keep me in a state of just like unworthiness. So I just put all that aside today. I have like 5 visions to give. I can't give them all at once because they're so detailed, and you need to know the details. But I wanted to share with you how God showed me. I can hear my dog. Hold on. I had to let my dog in because it was very distracting. How God showed me just like the bigger picture right now of everything that's going on. I saw famine. I saw basically the big. That's weird. It just like paused on me for a second. The beginning of the end. And I've seen this more than once. But this was this was different. I haven't seen this in such a long time. I haven't had a rapture vision in such a long time, but this is like not the rapture in the tribulation. This was like leading up to it. It's going to get uncomfortable. It is not going to be an easy ride. And that's why when, I hear people talking about, oh, your husband's coming, or like prophesying your husband's coming. And I'm like, I think right now, God wants to just prepare us so much as the church to be ready for not a physical marriage of unity, but a spiritual marriage of unity with Him. And, it says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. And wherever your heart is, there your treasure lies as well. Sorry, my dog, she's just needy. It's 5 a.m. in the morning, and I never ever wake up this early. If you know me, that's not how I am. She must hear my voice and hear how frazzled I am. Okay, so the bigger picture is that America is going to go into a civil. Wow, it just paused on me again. America is going to go into a civil war. We not only have we been sold out to Russia and China, which I didn't realize when I had posted that I saw missile bombs and everything, and I had prophesied that it was going to happen. I don't know if that video is still up. I kind of got embarrassed. I took some things down, and then I'm like, man, God was speaking. Like at that moment, that was such a real vision. And I thought that it was going to be an actual war, but it was more of a Cold War from China and a Cold War from Russia. So, of things infiltrating. I mean, TikTok is owned by China. Facebook is now Meta. So, just paused on me again. The lag of the video. I've never had this before where I've had a camera lagging while I'm recording. Okay, so it's going to come down to a civil war. My last video that I posted was about, sorry, getting insecure. My last video that I posted was about the fact that God wanted to release us from bondage. That's how He feels about Israel. That's what He's doing. He's releasing us from an Egyptian bondage. He releases us from Egyptian mindsets. It says in the Bible that you cannot serve 2 masters. Sin becomes some people's master, and then God wants to set us free from that sin, whether it's addiction or it's opiates or alcoholism, a bad, toxic, addictive relationship where the person is not filled with God's Spirit and they're just, abusing and using, That is a satanic ploy to keep you in bondage so that you never come into the full knowledge of who Christ is. And at this point, God needs us free financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, free of addiction, free of poverty. Poverty is a snare, so that's a bondage as well. So I'm just kind of like breaking down the last vision that I gave so that you can kind of understand where God's heart is on this, is that He loves us and He does want to set us free. That's what He wants. Stomach's gurgling. But we've been tested. We've been tried. We've been walking through the valley of the shadow of death. Our faith has been tested. And God told me that previous season prior was a season of faith being tested, and then getting freedom freedom from the sin, freedom from slavery, freedom from bondage, any sort of bondage. Let's say your husband's cheating on you, then that's a bondage, excuse me. So I just pray for everyone's hearts to heal, because even depression can be a bondage. And I've experienced that too, where I felt like I couldn't lift my head at all. Sickness is a bondage. Being sick is a bondage. So anyways, it goes on, but God wants to set us free. And who was responsible for keeping us in bondage? That was Satan. Jesus says that he came to set the captives free. He came to set the captives free. He came that we might have abundant life. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but God comes that we might have abundant life. I'm talking fast because I have to speak to get out as much as possible. Okay, so that's God's desire for you, is for you to be free, because he needs to use you in this next season. He's preparing you for what's to come. What's going to come is that, oh my gosh, I just kind of had a vision right now of like a tree with apples on it, and like the apples falling off. Like God's going to shake things up, and it's the season. We're in the season of what could possibly be the rapture, but leading up to that point, it's not going to be good. We're fighting for our rights as a Christian nation right now. The enemy wants to come in, and he wants to have the tribulation already. He wants to have famine already. He wants to have the Antichrist spirit is out there. Speaking of America, we are a Christian nation. We are fighting for our roots as a Christian nation. And this is God is saying the second civil war. And it's beginning to look like the tactics used in the Second World War is what's going to be used by the enemy. So keep an eye out for that. So that's like 6 visions that I've had, because that's another one that I have. Oh gosh. Okay. So God has to have us free so that we can prepare, so that we can be useful for his kingdom to come from heaven onto earth for his glory and for salvation of souls, for people to be set free. And we are fighting for our roots as a Christian nation. We are going to win, but it is going to be a battle. So be there for the long haul. Understand that this might be a little bit longer than it's not overnight. It's not an overnight success. It's not an overnight battle. It's going to take faith, because imagine if George Washington lost faith. He lost almost every single battle before he won a battle, which was probably like the biggest battle in it, like won the war. I don't remember exactly, but he wasn't well liked or respected by people in his own company. Benedict Arnold, turned him over to the Redcoats and tried to slaughter an entire army because of what he knew. He was an actual spy. So I don't know, just if you ever get a chance to like research some of that, it's really interesting. But George Washington was a Christian and a praying man, and he did have a vision about America. So look into that. Take a look into that. I need to take a deep breath and tell you about the vision that I just had, because it's fresh on my mind. But bottom line, he needs us free so that we can be useful in these battles, because it's going to become a physical thing. Okay? Notice how right now we're having the shipping wars basically going on in the ports of California, where people can't get the things that they need. And then we're having, an onslaught of just people in the Mexican-American border, and they're being sent by the, what are they called? A Mexican gang. And what they do is they bring all the women and children, and that's why people are so confused. They're like, but that's women and children, or that's a family, blah, blah, blah. They are sending thousands of people at the border to congest the border, to infiltrate the border, and that's not the problem. The problem is that they are a diversion tactic, so that what I would call like the Mexican mafia, I don't remember what they're called exactly. It's like blanking out of my mind. I know what they're called, I just forgot. They go through another area, like through the middle of the desert, with all their drug mules, with all their sex trafficking, back and forth. So it's just a diversion tactic. So they're infiltrating our own government, our own America, and it's like we're being sold to, piece by piece, we're being sold off, like the enemy that is in these people. And we have to realize that's really what they're doing. They want to take down the foundations of America. They want to take down the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, our Christian roots, the fact that we are not, a free love, love is love, pedophiles and no, not, we are We are the first Christian nation, and wherever the Spirit of God is, there's freedom and there's truth. Now my dog wants out, so I have to hold on. 1 second. Wherever the Spirit of God is, that wherever the Spirit of God is, that there is liberty and that there is freedom. And I just think of how Jesus said to the people, I wish that you would prosper even as your soul prospers. So God sees it as a whole. He doesn't just say, oh, you can just rot in jail. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes, Paul wrote a lot of the Bible behind bars, but that's not always God's will. Sometimes he's like, hey, you're my foot soldiers, I need you on the ground, and not just praying, but actually being resourceful. So I saw it as supply shortages, and mainly food. And I saw people dying of radiation and cancer. So hold on while I open the door again for my dog. 1 second. Okay. She was hungry, so she usually doesn't eat till like 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning. Okay. So if you ever watch a Civil War movie, they focus a lot on food. Like, food is a huge thing. People will choose sides over who has food. So in my dream, I'll just get into it right now. And this is one other thing that God told me, like, start planting plants, start being self-sufficient. I have done a lot of prepping, I guess you could say, like a solar generator and other things like that. So I'll get into that another time. Right now, I'm just going to make this about this vision that I just saw right now, which is so extremely urgent because it gives a bigger picture. And I've seen so many visions of like the flag over the American flag, the current American flag being placed over a map of America, and the people just holding on to it and just being united. And it was just beautiful. The people came here for religious freedom to begin with, and, had suffered a lot from at the hands of tyranny. So that's why our Constitution was made, because you take those rights away and it becomes tyrannical. People abuse their power. And that's unfortunate that people trust the government that much to actually think that they're on our side when you have to have the right to defend yourself even against your own government, possibly. And that is why that right is being so fought after right now. The number one thing that people were concerned about, which I would have suspected it would have been water, but the number one thing people were concerned about in my vision was food and cancer and radiation. So the dream starts out, I am in some sort of library, and there's, I guess this part is irrelevant because it's a fight between me and my ex-husband, who I had legal grounds to leave, obviously, due to adultery and other things. Like having to be defensive because I have to. But anyways, so that I don't really think that is relevant, except for the fact that I got free from the past abuse. So I got free, and the library is like the resources of God's knowledge. And I'm like fighting to get it, So the first thing that I remember in my dream is being with other women and being told that stay out of the sun. You're going to be sensitive to radiation. And I remember we needed something, and I had to go through the sun, and I was like, I've got a path. But as time goes on, when you're walking and the path change, the shade comes. And so, the shade or whatever, it just seemed like I was walking. I just felt like that sounded so stupid right now. I'm going to post this regardless of how difficult this is to get out, because there were so many metaphors in the dream. But the main thing is that we would go to get things, and we would underestimate the word of warning. And the word of warning was, stay out of the sun. You're going to be very sensitive to radiation. And not all of us would live after a little bit of radiation. That's the scary part. And the people that knew that they were going to die would kind of shield the other people with their bodies. And they knew that they were going to die, so that's what they did. But the main thing was having to go out and get resources like food or water and come back to our little place of where we felt safe. So you'd get to the end of your rations, or, a little group of people, and you would tell yourself, wow, okay, so we're going to die unless we get food, So they send someone out, and we underestimated. So I have to wonder what would cause such a sensitivity to the light, such a sensitivity to the sun. If the ozone barrier is taken out by, let's say, what is it? Not Yosemite, Kaipa, starts with the Y, but some sort of volcano that's going to go off, that God told me that it's going to go off. And I keep on getting the name wrong, but it was a few months ago and God told me that it's going to go off. Yellowstone. If it does go off, that is going to throw the entire world off. Whatever resources are left is what we will have, and it will take years and years and years to get back. So, so we would go out and get resources, and we would get sick just from the sun. And that's if the ozone layer is taken away because of a volcanic eruption that goes off into the skyrockets off into space. If you research it, that is one of the things that, it's just off the top of my mind, that would happen. And there would not be any extra resources. Nothing would be able to grow in that kind of situation. So a solar generator is kind of useless. I don't know. Who knows? We might not need a solar generator, but get one anyways. So the sickness would feel just a few seconds of nausea. You'd start to feel nauseous, and you would know that was radiation. And if someone felt themselves getting very sick, because we would go by twos, then the other person would shield the person that was remaining. And that's the really sad thing. And usually the sick people would go out and get the food and come back because they didn't have long to live anyways. So it felt like I experienced it. So that's why I'm just very like, oh my gosh. Like, I remember we had to go out and find resources of sunscreen because we were thinking about sunscreen. So that was the first thing we thought. We said, well, we'll see if anything is left. And, while we did that, we suffered just minor radiation. The other girl suffered more radiation than myself. We literally grabbed like a rug off the floor and just decided to cover ourselves and just wait, So that was, it seems like, well, it would be smarter to go at night. It's possible that people would not want to go out at night and forage for food. I mean, not in the wilderness, but forage for canned goods and dried beans or whatever, because it's dangerous at night. Like, it's common sense. More bad things happen at night, and especially as a woman. So we were going 2 by 2s as women. And it was me and another woman, and we totally underestimated the power of the sun and the radiation that we experienced. And we couldn't get to the sunscreen. We had to stop. I'm thinking, that the parable or the allegory, the metaphor that God used was there was a door right behind us and we couldn't even get to it. But on the floor was a mat, and that we just were able to crouch down next to kind of like a wall, like a shallow wall, and kind of like hug that wall and at the same time have that thing. And we were just like, I remember thinking, even my clothing attire is not prepared for this sort of radiation. It felt so flimsy and thin, and yeah, my room's a mess. But I'm hearing my dog like scratching at the door again, so it's like she hears me talking and she's like, what are you talking about? I don't know. So I can't concentrate until I get her now. Hold on. Okay, so yeah, so the main 2 things that were of big concern was and water wasn't even a concern. So I'm wondering if, but that goes hand in hand. Food and water goes hand in hand, that you have to survive off food and water. And so people within the camp, were either, sometimes getting raped, or women felt like they were going to get raped, didn't even feel safe within the camp. But we were strong enough to fight for ourselves and forgive. And at one point, I saw a black man, and he was talking, and he was just, I could read his lips. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm reading his lips. And he's saying, we were fighting against each other, and now we have nothing. And so that was really sad. I remember thinking that we were pit against each other. We were just pawns, both of us, Republicans and Democrats. We were just pawns against each other because the enemy wants us divided so that we do not stand together. And really, we were in a compound as Christians. It wasn't like Republicans or Democrats. It was just Christians. And so that's why he was able to, I'm sure, express that. And people were trying to steal just anything that would gives them comfort. Like, you know, you leave your whole life behind, and the one thing you see is maybe like a ring, something pretty that a girl has on her hand that reminds her of her family or something like that. And I remember that when we would go out of the compound, we would go as twos and we would be warned, or we would go as a group. There was one guy that was dying of cancer. There was me that was probably going to die of cancer, and I was willing to sacrifice my life, knowing that I would probably die because I had already gone out more than once and been exposed to radiation, and the person shielded me with their body. But there was more than one of us in this occasion, and it was the end. And that's something that just popped in my head. We were told that we needed a passport to go across a border, and he was saying that he had been divorced and that he couldn't get his papers to be able to get his passport to go across some sort of border. And I was told how dangerous it was, and I was willing to accept that danger and accept that risk, and serve, as unto the Lord, to go and get the resources that people needed. My ring was actually something that people wanted to steal from me. And it was the one thing that I didn't want to give up, because this was between me and the Lord that Jesus gave me this ring, And so we had just exited the very door of the compound, which was just a house. And it was the three of us. And I'm even getting sick thinking about it because I remember the feeling. And a gang comes up. We see them from far off. And not necessarily like thugs where they have like guns and knives and things like that, which I'm sure they did, but we just decided to just do whatever they wanted and just get it over with and then move on. And because if we were compliant, they wouldn't kill us, and we were thinking, okay, we have to survive. We haven't even gotten the food yet. Or just in my head, it was just like survive, survive, survive. They ransacked us like pirates. And I remember telling them, don't you believe in God? Like, I didn't say, don't you believe in God, but I said, well, I believe in God. I believe that God's in control, and like, I love God. I just love God, and I'm doing this for God. And they go, God, are you serious? In this day and age, with all this, how this is going on, you believe in God still? And I just remember being like, and I knew that they were going to steal my ring, and I saw them from far off, and I was like, I didn't have the time to bury it or anything. So I guess, but even people within the compound who were Christians wanted to steal my ring. Not women, it was men for some reason. And it was like perceived value, or just like maybe something just like made them feel like they won something, or I don't know. It's also kind of a metaphor for a woman's purity and like just like raping her too. It's like taking something that's special to me, like I'm God's jewel, and taking that from me is like something precious to me, but we're God's jewels. So I just thought that might be a metaphor for rape. And I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, can't even hide it. Nothing can't bury it. And that was the last of it. That was the last of the... Oh, and the other thing was we had to get money in order to buy food. So it was like, if you know about Venezuela, like you had to like buy money to like then be able to buy food. So there'd be two different trades going on, two transactions. And it was cash. So it wasn't gold, silver, Bitcoin. It was literally just cash. And we needed, I believe we needed like $30 or $40. And none of that was stolen from us. Like, I think that they knew that we had to survive. And I had like a mat protecting my body. And the guy goes, give me that. And he takes it right off of me. He takes something that would protect me. Stop, Olivia, stop. And takes it and says, I need this for my dog. My eyes are twitching now. He goes, I need this for my dog. And I'm just like, your dog? Like, isn't that selfish? Like, and I was thinking in my head, like, so you're not even, you're not just trying to cover your dog. You're also trying to feed your dog and give your dog water. And those are resources that could be used for people. Like, and I love my dog. So if you know me, like, you know how hard it would be for me to be in this situation. But I was just thinking, that's a person that is food that could go towards a person. You're the cause of someone dying because they didn't get that amount of food. And so yeah, food was the biggest issue, and then radiation. So And there was one guy there. He was also black, and his name was Reggie. And I think I already said that, but I didn't say his name. His name was Reggie, and he was already dying of cancer. And I was trying to say goodbye to him, and he was my brother, just had brotherly love. And I was just like, oh, brother, like, you're going to go soon. He's like, I know. And it was just sad because when life is cut short, you just wish the person was there to stay for longer. Just stop, please stop. Wish that the person was able to stay for longer and help and be a light and comfort one another in brotherly love. And so that was a thing. And the pirates, at the very end of it all, I remember his teeth were falling out. And I remember thinking, wow, your teeth are so straight, but your teeth are falling out. So I'm thinking malnourishment, possibly. But I know that there's also a meaning of a symbol for teeth falling out. So I'll try to look that up right now. Well, as soon as I tried to look it up and try to figure out what it meant to have teeth falling out, I found out that it means lack of wisdom or understanding. And he had such straight teeth, but they were all falling out, and they were just didn't even hurt or anything. Something just popped in my head, another part of the dream. Okay, so the other part of the dream, there was a girl, and it was very vivid. This was the very first part of the dream. Gosh. Okay. It keeps on like pausing on me. So the very first part of the dream was this it was almost like as if we were spies. And this was at the very, very beginning. She was going to go across from California to like Arizona or Texas, and she had kind of reddish hair, just very, I don't know. She was white, and she had reddish hair, and we sent her across the state line to do something. I don't remember exactly what, but I remember that she was like a daughter of a police officer or something like that, and that she went to go help on the border, something like that. Oh, God. Help me remember. Okay, so now I remember a little bit. So at the end of my vision, actually it was more of a dream and it was very vivid. The person who was like the pirate who was stealing from us Christians who were trying to get resources, which were food, water, mainly food. His teeth were falling out, and I discovered that to mean that they lack wisdom. They lost all of their wisdom. I looked it up on John Paul Jackson's dream site, and that's what it says. So I just thought that was interesting. And it was just coming right out, just like no problem. And they also had no fear of God. Like I mentioned, like, don't you believe in God? Like I love God. Like I still have faith. Like I still believe that God loves us. God doesn't leave us. And he goes, huh, you think of God? Like, you really? Like, look at this place, And there was one guy that was trailing behind, and he said, don't trust them. Don't trust the people some of the people that trade food. Sorry, my video keeps on lagging, which I'm like, how is that even possible? But don't trust the people who trade food. He had a card, and it said he was looking for Virgo, and it was like food trader and looking for Virgo. And he was like, see this card? Like, this is so obvious. Someone who is an enemy that is looking for this person. He just put a spot on me. And then we got robbed and everything by the same people. And then he trailed behind a little bit and he said, I would go with you, but I'm already with them. And I already know how to do everything you're doing, but they have something that I need. So it was kind of like understanding that there needed to be some sort of a trade. And I remember thinking, well, whatever they're doing, we need to learn how to do that. So like maybe some people are good at hunting, and so that's going to be their trade that they do. Like they're good at hunting, and another group already has like all the dehydrated foods and like the canned goods and everything. And another group might be really good at medical supplies, but people are when they're in a survival situation and they're not born again, they see it as me against you. Either me or you. One of us is going to die and it's not going to be me. Whereas the Christian is like just trusting in God. So, and serving God and self-sacrificing, because that's what Christ did for us. And we see the longevity of it all. Like, if I save myself, but then an entire family dies, I would rather share the gospel with them and then be able to live, And so that was interesting, just understanding that there needed to be more knowledge so that we could not be so dependent, and also be an asset to someone who already knew or already had what we had, that we would be able to, maybe someone's good at mechanics, and other people or good at electrical wiring, or has a greenhouse or something like that. But it was mostly like a knowledge thing. It wasn't really like a stored up foods. It was more of a knowledge, that would be a trade and a barter, I guess you could say. So some people are better at hunting and some people are better at fishing. And, if there's nothing to hunt and only food in the river, then there's nothing that, doesn't, sorry, I'm shaking this video. It doesn't help. So, and then that's why women are kind of a vulnerable target, just because a lot of us don't even know how to shoot a gun. So that's pretty basic self-defense, that we're just not valued to have, and that the monetary was not gold or silver or Bitcoin. I noticed that it was actual cash, but we had to give something to get that cash. And then we could take that cash and go get something that we needed, which was food. Okay, so what was the other thing I was going to tell you? Let me think. Hold on. Yes, the passports. So, okay, so before it got really, really, really bad, you had to be part of a certain party to be going across a state line or something like that. I knew that there was a boundary and that you couldn't go across. So we kind of had to have spies. We kind of had to have like people go across the state line and do an assignment, which I wasn't told what the assignment was, but there was a girl. She was brave. She was trained in, and she was the daughter of a cop, and she was trained in, athletic field and a, guns. Like, she was trained in self-defense. So she volunteered, and she was honestly the perfect person and the only person that could actually do this. So she goes into a cart, and she was also rich and affluent. So she used her affluence and, to get to where she needed to be. But unfortunately, so she's going, I don't understand the meaning of this, but this is what I'm going to tell you, is that she didn't take a freeway. She took a mountain road, and it had something to do with Mexico and had something to do with another state and not being able to get to that state. So borders. Borders was kind of an interesting thing, and going through maybe going through the mountains, it was kind of interesting. And she thought it was safer, and she actually had a driver. She had a car that was all black, tinted windows. It was like a windy road. It wasn't a main highway or anything. And she was followed. And it was like 20 deep of cars, and she was killed. But I assume that she completed her task because people actually paid homage to her and were just like, thank you, for what you did. But none of her affluence could save her against a tyrannical society. So that was interesting and also kind of sad. And just women wanting to be more like her after that, just kind of being like a role model of strength and just wanting to think like her, wanting to be like her, and just wanting to be strong. So yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And by the time that we realize what's really going on, which is a nation divided, cannot stand, we're not going to have anything left. So if you want to be useful to the kingdom of God, we need to not only get free, but begin putting things away, begin preparing for such a time as this, because this is going to be a real time of testing and faith, and where even if we have to, love God unto death, share the gospel unto death, or get resources and eventually, die because of, exposure to the sun and radiation. If the volcano explodes, that is going to destroy our ecosystem. It's going to destroy the ozone layer, the thing that protects us from the radiation of the sun. So it's going to be very interesting. Soon, very soon. And I've heard from Jesus saying, I'm coming soon. And that's why I believe that he wants us to be, obviously he wants everyone to be pure and innocent, but even more so now, it's like, in the times of Noah, people were eating and drinking and they're just lollygagging, not even paying attention. And God's like, no, look at me, get in the ark, And it's not a time for, and if, it's okay to start a business. It's okay to do that as long as your heart is with the Lord and you're putting Jesus first and you're seeing the bigger picture and realizing, this is temporary. But God wants to set you up to be able to have the kingdom resources, to be able to start setting aside money, just like cash, to start setting aside food. And, time is money. So when you're just busting your butt 24 hours a day, or I'd say maybe like I did in the past, 12 hours a day, and then watching a kid for 6 hours a day, that is it drains. You can't even think about how you can prepare. You don't even have an inch of a measure of strength left for that. And so God understands that, and that's why he wants us free. How much more are we going to be useful to God when we are financially, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, everything free? He wants us to labor in his fields, not in fields made by man. So that's concerning. And I've heard people say this is also concerning, is when people are Christian and they say, oh, God will provide. Oh, God will provide. Oh, God will protect us. Everything will be okay. And it's like, okay, well, Joseph was told to save, what was he told? He was told to save, told everyone to save 20% of their crops and put them away for the entire nation. If people are in unity, there is so much more that can be done when they just listen to, their leadership and follow those directions. Whereas people who, when we're divided against each other and we're like, oh no, God told me everything's going to be fine. Okay, well, you can't eat air, prayer, God wants us to be wise. And it says that the wise servant prepares their oil, has extra oil. The wise virgin bride has extra oil. The ant prepares during summer, during harvest, prepares for winter. So that's wisdom. It's always wisdom to be prepared, and especially now, there's this serious, serious warning. We're not in a day and age where the tree has not ripened, if you get what I'm saying. This is the season for the birth pains. So please, please, please take this word seriously and begin preparing in whatever way that you need to prepare. For example, I got 5 55-gallon tubs of water, and I have tons of dried food and canned food, which I don't think would last me any longer than 2 weeks. I used to think it was crazy for people to prepare food for years, but now I'm seeing that that's extremely smart. And now we're seeing that we're going to need sunscreen. We're going to need appropriate clothing. Obviously, we're going to need Bibles and water, and whatever you have that you are trained in, try to excel at. And for example, if you have children, you might want to get them to Boy Scouts or the Young Eagle Marines, something of that nature. Buy a gun, a generator, solar generator, having multiple backups of something. I have a cooler that can plug in, and it plugs into my solar generator. So learning how to cook outside literally you can cook with the solar, it's called a solar cooker, but all you have to do is just get a pot and aluminum foil, a clear glass, and if you magnify the sun onto the glass, and the food underneath will cook underneath the sun. So, but if you don't have food, what are you going to cook? You can't eat dirt. You can't eat dirt. You can't eat clothes. You can't eat makeup. That seemed to be the most extreme, important resource to have. So, yeah. I don't know how long God is going to have us go through this, but I don't think that God is telling us because he's kidding. I think that it's going to come to pass. So I'll talk to you guys soon. I have more visions to share. I had a vision years ago about the coronavirus that I've never shared about the vaccine, but if you're thinking about getting the vaccine, do not get it. It is literally in the dream, it was literally an experiment. It was Nazi Germany. I don't even want to describe it right now, but people were getting autoimmune diseases after it. And because there have been no long-term studies, we don't know what effects it's going to have. And people had autoimmune disease afterwards, and of all kinds. Go on. And got very sick. Sorry. Some people did get very sick and die. Some people just got a little bit sick. So yeah, that's another way that the enemy tries to take our strength, is just to try to weaken us, weaken our immune system, or try to make us sick so that we're not able to fight back. So God bless everybody. Bye-bye.